Welcome to this week's edition of Freedom and Prosperity Radio, the weekly radio news magazine that we put together here for the Virginia Institute for Public Policy. My name is Joe Thomas. Thank you for joining us. You can find us online at virginiainstitute.org, as well as through our YouTube channel, where we have archives of all of our previous editions of Freedom and Prosperity Radio. Post-crossover edition. Crossover is that wonderful Virginia holiday within a holiday where the Senate gives all their bills that they've passed to the House, and the House does the same, and then they try to come up with something that looks the same at the end of the day. And to kick it in, no more big issue. The gas tax might give it a run for its money, but all of the moves against the Second Amendment, and certainly still in the glow of the 50,000 plus in Richmond for the 26th annual Virginia Citizens Defense League Lobby Day. Philip Van Cleave is on the Newsmakers line with us. Philip, welcome back to the program. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, Joe.
Well, I'll tell you something, that was no more inspiring. I was live in Charlottesville during the ugly riots of 2017, and I feel like I have been cleansed and reborn after the VCDL Lobby Day. And it's not the first one I've been at, but the media made it sound like you hastily called this rally about the gun bills. It's 26 years, correct? You've been having Lobby Day.
We've been doing it since 2003. We didn't do it for a long 18 years, and it wasn't hastily. You know, we do it every year. It's always on the same day, Martin Luther King's birthday. We can look at a calendar and I can tell the exact dates we're going to do it next year and the year after. And they made it sound like it was going to be this very dangerous place, that there was going to be all kinds of problems. They did everything they could to get as few people as possible to turn out for this thing.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what it was. It was trying to drive down turnout. The governor and his hand-wringing proclamations of emergency requests and restrictions on the property, and then the fences. As Bill Stanley said to me that morning we were live from there, he said, boy, all we have to do is hold one of these rallies at the border and the left will build the wall for us.
Right. Yeah, suddenly walls made sense to them. They had all this fencing up, and I thought that was exactly what they were against.
Now, that being said, and I even heard hopeful news from some of the members of the Black Caucus that were saying that their community members were up in arms against the concept of the red flag laws because in the black communities, they've heard of things like this, and certainly some of them remember the days when all you had to do was have your neighbor call and the police come and kick your door down. But at the end of the day, the party and whatever fealties they owe won out over representation as these red flag laws keep moving through.
Well, Bloomberg gave a significant amount of money to a lot of the Democrats, a whole lot. We're going to have something on that on our website in the near future here, because all that's been tabulated. And basically the Democrats were bought and paid for by Bloomberg. So they're not answering to their constituents. They're answering to the sugar daddy that gave them a bunch of money to get elected.
It's amazing because they can say one thing. Is this really a one and done for this General Assembly? They're going to pass this massive change in Virginia's way of life. I mean, we're talking about right to work. We're talking about collective bargaining. We're talking about massive gas tax hikes and all the Second Amendment regulations. And then just take it's like a suicide pact they have, and they just won't get reelected. But by that point, all these things have become law.
Yeah, well, if they're doing to some of the things we had become law, they're undoing it. Their stuff can be undone, too, I don't know what makes them think it can't. Just another General Assembly comes in. And this time, if people are smart, when the Republicans are running against them, make the Republicans, vote for the ones that swear an oath that their main job will be to undo all of this.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that come 2021, there's a governor's race, and if I was running for governor, which is a thought that scares a lot of people, including my boss, Linda, the first thing I would do is get a picture of me with a pen that says veto down it. Say, this is my veto pen, and it's going to get worn out if you vote for me for governor.
Oh, not only that, you can modify bills.
Mm-hmm.
That's a game that they've been playing. Well, you can play it right back to them. They can give you a bill that does something, and you can turn right around and reverse it and make it do something better.
Yeah, we've seen that plenty of times. Terry McAuliffe was famous for that. Philip, just as we reached crossover earlier this week, the Wasson Center at CNU reissued their December 16th poll results so that the media would lop up these narratives that 57% of Republicans support red flag laws and 73% of all Virginians, until, which nobody in the media, as far as I can tell except me, did, you look at what questions were asked, and you realize they were asking questions that don't even bear any resemblance to the red flag law legislations that actually went through without any due process or anything like that. I think the Virginians that were polled would have had a whole different set of answers to the Wasson Center if they had been asked an honest question.
Yeah, they got push polling. You've got where you twist the result. You've got not telling people. Like, for example, I said, 90% of the people, including NRA members, support universal background checks. Well, it turns out, no, that's not the question they were asked. They just asked if they supported background checks generally. But for purposes of propaganda, you changed it to say they supported universal background checks. Mm-hmm. That wasn't the question.
Right, and of course they don't
do
back
this
it up
all the time. If they say they got a survey, I just toss it in the trash. I don't even look at it.
But they don't even mention to the folks surveying that, by the way, almost everyone who buys a firearm goes through a background check anyway.
Right.
That's right. The part. We've talked about this.
We know it's not going to lower crime. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to do the universal background check. It won't lower crime. Then they're going to come around next year and say, well, it didn't lower crime, so the problem is people are cheating. It's got to be what it is. It couldn't be our law is stupid. It's got to be somebody's cheating. So now we got to get universal gun registration so we can make sure we know exactly what guns everybody has.
Well, does it strike you as ironic the same legislature that wants to pass same-day voter registration without photo ID wants to pass comprehensive background checks for a firearm purchase?
Oh, absolutely. Hypocrites. Absolutely. Yeah. One of our most important rights, the right to vote and control this country. Well, we don't need any kind of ID for that. But you want to own a gun? Oh, my God. Now we really got to go through the hoops. Yeah, no, it's, they're pretty transparent in there. We call it hypocrisy. I think this is the America they want.
I almost think hypocrite or two-faced is not enough. I call them multifaceted because they just seem to have 10 or 12 different faces depending.
They've got more faces and everything. Yeah, it's true. It's weird. I mean, it's like we just entered the Twilight Zone because they're all marching in unison pretty much. There's a few little fractures on the Democrat side, but it's not much.
Well, and they don't seem to have the same, force that they used to, or Creed Eads or somebody else. They seem to have gotten in lockstep, and you almost wonder if what we watched in Washington with the impeachment hearings is being used on these Democrats in Richmond, which is the threat of primary, and, don't do this.
Oh, it is. No, I mean, indeed, McAuliffe wielded that sword many times. He took out several moderate Democrats and replaced them with extreme ones. Mm-hmm. He did that. He primaried them and they lost. So he was busy stacking the deck.
We're visiting with Philip Van Cleave, president of the Virginia Citizens Defense League, on Freedom and Prosperity Radio. What is the prospect? The Virginia way, at least since Terry McAuliffe, is do this radical stuff the first year you're in office, and then the second year moderate and become I'm just trying to fund the teachers and the law enforcement. I'm just a middle-of-the-road guy or gal, and hope that people forget 2 years down the road. How do we keep this passion going? What do you need to do? What do I need to do to help? What do we all need to be doing to keep the passion that Virginians are feeling right now continuing until November of 2022, when the next time any of these seats come up for election?
Well, it's 2020. 2021.
2021, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but believe me, I know that date. I've got it memorized.
Right, and that's also the governor election as well.
Governor and the House. The House could flip right back. But the Democrats may only have it for 2 years, and then it could be gone. It could be gone for a long time if they play their cards wrong, and they seem to be doing that pretty well. We have to, basically, we're just going to keep reminding people constantly of the rights that have been stripped away from them, the restrictions that they now are running under. And gun owners aren't going to forget. I mean, this is, anything they pass is really, they haven't seen the tip of the iceberg. If they really pass this stuff, they're going to see some serious anger out there, and you're going to see a lot of people not complying.
Oh yeah.
And so forth and so on.
Do you think they'll actually go to the lengths of putting somebody in jail over this, and can we at least get enough honest brokers in the media to cover them so that they don't just vanish off the face of the earth?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, they certainly are working on becoming Venezuela, so I suppose that's absolutely possible. We're just going to have to stay on top of it, and that's one of the things we may have to tell our members, and with all these awoken gun owners out there, basically telling them, boy, you hear of anything untoward, let us know. My hope is that the majority of law enforcement is going to say, we're not doing this. We're not enforcing this. This is not constitutional. We're just not doing it. And we need some prosecutors saying, we're not going to prosecute. Pass what you want. We're not doing it. We got real criminals to worry about, not people like Joe Thomas who's done nothing wrong except own something that was perfectly legal the day before.
Well, you speak about that because maybe those will be the people who wind up in jail as a sheriff or a Commonwealth's attorney that decides not to prosecute.
I'll tell you what, that would be very interesting, because I think what would happen then, because I could sure see this happening, that's when gun owners from the area surround the courthouse and say, you come in and try to get him. You go to try to pick up our sheriff.
Oh, boy.
I mean, it sounds backwards but that's the way a militia would work. That basically enforcing the laws of the United States and protecting from the government becoming tyrannical and taking away the officers that are following the Constitution and trying to take them away and put in people that aren't. I could see it. And I don't think the National Guard would want anything to do with this.
Oh my gosh.
The state police officers aren't going to want to do anything. Now, their boss is the governor. But can you imagine? I don't know. Don't underestimate. I mean, we've got wonderful police in Virginia. We got the National Guard. They're us. All these people are us.
What happens? What happens if the National Guard refuses the governor? Because Bobby Scott, of course, not knowing how the National Guard works, said, well, the governor would have to nationalize the National Guard, which made no sense. But he's a congressman. We've got him up there where he can't do too much harm. What happens if the governor says, go get Sheriff so-and-so, the Culpeper sheriff or some other Jenkins, who's done this, and go get him and remove him from office? And they refuse to. What happens then? I mean, does he, turn on the National Guard, and what's the point left?
No, he wouldn't have much. I mean, if the police aren't enforcing, I mean, his powers only extend to the point that somebody's willing to execute what he wants done. If nobody's willing to do it, he's got no power.
So he couldn't even turn to the FBI, which is, that would require him calling President Trump and saying, "Hey, I need that."
Yeah, and Trump could actually go the other way. Trump could say, "I'm going to nationalize the National Guard, and take over, and sorry, Governor, but they're under my control right now."
State of emergency. Yeah, he could declare that as well. All right, we've made the scary scenarios. Now let's get to some of the more bizarre ones. Mark Levine, the esteemed delegate who is the author of the ridiculous assault weapons ban, which didn't do anything in the 90s when it was national laws, brought it all back, is out there saying, well, when the Second Amendment was written, it was muskets and blunderbusses, and they didn't have the kind of weapons, but that's the same kind of weapons the soldiers had in the British Army, too.
Right, and the Constitution it does handle changes in technology and so forth. I mean,
that's why it doesn't say gun; it says arms.
Yeah, so he would be saying that the Internet's no longer covered by free speech, because the Internet, in fact, a lot of things, no typewriters would exist. You have to do everything with a quill. Of course, it's all ridiculous. Look, I'll give you an example of how little they think about this and how stupid they think we are. Is it Helmer? I think is one of the newer Democrats in there. He had questioned me on the bill that made some misdemeanors take away your gun rights.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was sexual battery, and he looked at me in subcommittee, and said, "Well, don't you? So you think somebody that's been convicted of sexual battery should have a gun?" I said, "Sexual battery is a misdemeanor." So he says, "You think that sexual battery is a minor crime?" I said, "I don't. You guys do. You're the ones that made it a misdemeanor, not me."
Yep.
So clearly, the General Assembly believes that that is a minor crime. And no, you should not lose your rights for a minor crime. And at that point, he shut up. He realized he didn't have a good response. I said, I basically double dared him to go ahead and make it a felony. He didn't want to do it.
Well, in our flagship city, we had an elected official who had been charged with sexual assault, and they dropped it to sexual battery just so he didn't have to automatically lose his office for being convicted of a felony.
Exactly, yeah. But they don't want to make it a felony. They want to take away your gun rights for a misdemeanor. And so they got a bill to do that for some misdemeanors, not all misdemeanors, but for a few others besides of domestic violence.
Philip Van Cleave, president of the Virginia Citizens Defense League, on with us this week. The red flag laws are buried under this ridiculous banner of we just want to keep the guns out of the hands of bad people. And it's just the most inane, but people are falling for it, and they fell for it at the election time. But now you look at the bill, and they, quote, fix the bill by giving you the right to say no one time. You still don't get any due process. It's not like you can say no to the police and then go into court with them and plead your case. They just go back and get it away and then come back with another warrant, and then they kick down the door and you have no... How does anyone think that no due process is constitutional?
Yeah, the whole thing, I don't know how people get around the no due process. They did tighten it up a little bit, but still, it's the first, the second, the fourth, fifth, sixth. I mean, they're taking your property without any, paying you for it or any warrant or anything of that nature. The other thing, by the way, is I emphasize, it does nothing for the dangerous person.
That's right.
If this is supposed to make us safe, then why doesn't it get the dangerous person to a mental health clinic? Why, if they're truly just violent, why don't they put them in jail or something? Mm-hmm. Why don't they get them some help? Something. They don't do anything. They leave that dangerous person alone and merely arrest his guns. Mm-hmm. How does that make you safe or make him safe? If he's suicidal, 25% of suicides are by hanging.
Yeah.
And then you got poisons. You got all kinds of things. So
that's why
it's all about disarmament.
I mean, that's why Nick Freitas's line from several years ago is so prescient. When the policies fail to get the results you're promising your constituents, you'll be back. I mean, I worry that there will be some sort of violent event after all this takes place, Philip, and then where do we go from there?
I don't know. We're certainly taking things to court, but
yeah,
and people, of course, are worried about the possibility of civil war, which I just sort of shake my head and say it wouldn't be a civil war. Civil war is brother against brother. It would be a revolutionary war, mm-hmm. which is the people against a tyrannical government.
Yeah. Well, what about, I kind of chuckle and everyone asks me about Vexit, and I talked to the member of the West Virginia General Assembly that had written the bill. But that's the frustration of the Virginian that now sees their best chance to stop this 2-3 months in the rearview mirror and a long empty stretch of highway ahead of them. So I guess the frustration is that there's not a lot they can do about it right now. But you mentioned court. I've talked to several barristers who say that there are law firms that are gearing up for those constitutional fights, that these leftists may overplay their hand, make laws that are unconstitutional, and then have settled case law like Roe v. Wade that says, that what you've done is unconstitutional and putting them in a box forever.
You said they may overstep?
Well, all right. I mean, when they overstep, and then if the governor signs
it. Or they've already done it to some degree. Yes. Oh, we've got that. We've already paid a lot of money into attorneys that are getting all the ducks in a row for suits against any of the various things that could pass, mm-hmm. getting all their facts and getting ready to get witnesses or get plaintiffs and all that stuff. We're going to hit the ground running the minute the ink hits the paper on some of this stuff if the governor signs it. We're waiting, of course, to see exactly what passes and how it passes. Mm-hmm. But yeah. We'll be in the courts. VCDL has never done a protest like that. I mean, we've done protests on small levels. We could have a big protest this time against some of this. By the way, we had a lot of people outside of Bloomberg's little. He had a little little thing going on in Northern Virginia, and we had like 300 or 400 people outside. There were like 100 people inside, so we had them vastly outnumbered on the outside, telling him Bloomberg to go home.
Well, and for those who are wondering what his presidency would be like, I mean, here's Virginia as an example. Philip, this weekend is the Nation's Gun Show, and I've talked to the folks at Showmasters who have told me that your signups have just been out the door during this past year at some of the gun show sites. I presume VCDL will be there. I didn't find out.
Yes. We'll have like 3 tables.
Yeah, and so please come and sign up. But one of the things they told me that really struck me is not only did we have a low voter turnout amongst conservatives in 2019, but and that was telling me that even amongst some of the attendees of these gun shows, somewhere upwards of 30% of them aren't even registered to vote. This, do we need to get a voter registration?
If we turn that around, it would change everything.
Yeah, I mean that was a stunning number.
Some have made the silly comment that, I don't want to do jury duty. Well, 2 thoughts on that. One, they're getting your name for jury duty from your driver's license, not registration to vote. And also, if you actually serve on a jury, there's something called jury nullification you can participate in. Yep. You see an unjust gun law or something, you just vote not guilty, yep. And that brings the whole thing to a screeching halt.
It's a great point, Philip. Well, then we'll see you up there at the Nation's Gun Show. I'm going to be up there with one of our other shows there on the weekend, and so hopefully run into you there as well. That's up at Dulles, and come on up and be part of it, the Nation's Gun Show going on this weekend. And thank you for everything you do. And if you're not up there, just go to vcdl.org and register, become a member, because Philip needs every hand on deck right now.
Yeah, we do. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much. Coming up next on Freedom and Prosperity Radio, John Decker, Executive Director of the Committee to Unleash Prosperity and the American Commitment, here on Freedom and Prosperity Radio.